And many ask how we are supposed to understand the two of them together. In both cases, there's an opportunity to receive money, and in one case he takes the money, in the other case he doesn't take the money. And many ask why did he behave differently in the two cases. So let's take a look first in the text at the stories. So we'll have them in front of us, and then I'll give you a few answers and meditate on them. The first one is in the beginning of Lech Lecha, beginning of the Torah's recounting Abraham's life story. He comes to the land of Israel, and immediately there's a famine, and he resolves to go down to Egypt, and does so. And I'm skipping over a lot of details which aren't relevant to our issue. When they do so, the Egyptians saw that Sarah was beautiful, and the report reached Pharaoh, and he took her into his palace, preparing to have a royal wedding. That was the idea. We're on page 57. So, and verse 16 it says, he treated Avraham well for her sake, and he acquired sheep, cattle, donkeys, slaves, maidservants, female donkeys, and camels, all sorts of tangible wealth, many sorts of tangible wealth. And Hashem afflicted Pharoh, along with his household, with severe plagues, because of the matter of Sarai, wife of Avraham. Somehow the plagues made it obvious that that was the cause. Pharaoh summoned Avraham and said to him, what is this you have done to us? Done to me? Why did you not tell me that she is your wife? Why did you say she's my sister? So that I would take her as my wife. Now, here is your wife, take her and go. So Pharaoh gave men orders concerning him, and they escorted him and his wife and all that was his. So he got rich in Egypt while Pharaoh thought they were brother and sister, and thinking that a marriage with the emperor would certainly be by consent, not dreaming that there would be any opposition. And they came down to Egypt very poor. And I suppose for the Pharaoh it would be an embarrassment if his brother-in-law would be a pauper. So he put him up into a good position financially, and Avraham took the money. Now, much later, the next Parsha, you have the war of the 4 kings and the 5 kings. I'm sorry. One second. Getting mixed up. No, it's in the same Parsha. They have the war of the 4 kings and the 5 kings, and one of the kings of the 5 was the king of Sodom, and they had a war, and the 4 kings triumphed and conquered the whole area, including the area of Sodom. And one of the things which they took captive from Sodom was Lot. Lot was Abraham's nephew, was living there. So Abraham got together his allies and chased the 4 kings, and in a single battle defeated them and conquered them. Instead of ransoming Lot, which he could have done, there are those who explain why he didn't do that. I'm not going to go into that now. So now, winner take all. The 4 conquered the 5, and Avraham conquered the 4, which means he now is in charge of everything. Well, now there's the poor king of Sodom. What is he going to do? All he knows how to do is be a king. Can't be a king if you haven't got a city. So he makes a plea to Avraham. The king of Sodom said to Avraham, this is page 65, I'm sorry. This is chapter 14, verse 21. The king of Sodom said to Avraham, give me the people and take the possessions for yourself. Avraham said to the king of Sodom, I lift up my hand to Hashem, God the Most High, maker of heaven and earth. If so much as a thread to a shoe strap, or if I shall take anything from you, nothing of yours. So you shall not say, it is I who made Avraham rich. Far from me. Only with the young men of Eden I have confederates that came with me, Canaanite confederates. They came and they took what they wanted to take. I'm not going to touch what they took. But me, I'm not taking anything. So here, Avraham refuses to take anything, down to the tiniest matchstick, nothing. And one wonders why he's so adamant in dismissing what the king of Sodom wanted to give him, whereas in the case of Pharoh, he accepted abundant wealth. Now, Rashi addresses the problem here in the case of Sodom, and he says as follows. He says, thank you very much. He says, I don't want to take anything from you. Don't you say that you made me rich. So Rashi says, Shakadosh Baruch Hu hivtichani la'ashreni, because the Kadosh Baruch Hu promised to make me rich. As it says, V'avarechecha, God promised to bless him. That's why I don't want your money. So now, Rashi is difficult for 2 reasons. The Maharal asks a straightforward logical question. Okay, God promised you that he would make you rich. Maybe this is precisely how he made you rich. He made you win the war. That's his fulfilling the promise. How is that a reason not to take the spoils of war? It's like the old joke, there's a flood, and the jeep comes by, and the guy's sitting in his house and says, what is going? You better get out. I have trust that God will save me. He goes up higher, and he's in the 2nd floor of the house, comes by a boat. Better get out. The flood's rising. God will save me. Water covers the 2nd floor. He's up on the roof. They send the helicopter. Better get out. The flood's rising. He says, I trust that God will save me. So the water rises, and he drowns. He comes before the throne of glory. He says to God, I believed in you. I trusted you. Why didn't you save me? God said, I sent you a jeep, and I sent you a boat, I sent you a helicopter. You didn't take them. How does Avraham supposed to know that this isn't exactly how because Baruch Hu is fulfilling his promise to make him rich? That's one question, a logical question. Second question is the one we started with. If God promised to make you rich, and that's your reason for not accepting money from the king of Sodom, why wouldn't that have been just as good a reason not to accept money from Pharoh? Both good questions. The Maharal answers as follows. Avraham knew that God would not fulfill his promise through war. Would not fulfill his promise through war. The spoils of war is not how God is going to make him rich. That's really quite a remarkable statement. He doesn't say, at least in that passage in the Goraryeh, he doesn't say anymore why that should be the case, what's wrong with becoming rich through war. But that answers both questions. It answers why he says that this isn't the way he's going to keep his promise, and it answers why he was prepared to take it from Pharaoh, because there wasn't any more. He gave it to him all willingly, because he didn't want his proposed brother-in-law to be impoverished. Now, I don't have any great grasp of why it would be wrong to do it through war, but I do know of one comparison. King David wanted to build the temple. He got the plans to the temple, and he asked God, so to speak, for permission to build it. And Hakadosh Baruch Hu said to him, no, you can't build it because you fought wars. Every one of the wars that Dovid fought was appropriate, was right, was approved. None of them were in any way questionable. Still, to be the agent of building the temple, whose purpose is supposed to be to bring peace into the world, someone whose life was dedicated to a certain extent in fighting wars wasn't the right person to do it. We have a pasuk that says you shouldn't shape the rocks, the boulders out of which the temple is made, with a sword. You're going to desecrate it if you use a sword, which is a tool of war, in shaping the rocks, the boulders that are going to be used for the wall of the temple. So there's some incompatibility here between war and building the temple, and something about God's blessing to someone is not going to be through booty from war. We do have blessings that we will able to defeat our enemies, but they aren't promises of booty. Even though, let's say, in the Milchamos Mitzvah, we're told what we're supposed to do there, but it's not promise of booty. And in Megillas Esther, where they are given permission to strike at their enemies, and in the permission is given the right to take their possessions, but it's quite, the text says explicitly they didn't do that. They weren't after money. They were after protection from enemies. So the Maharal is saying something that has a context. I don't have an explanation for it, but that's the answer. That's his answer to the question. He didn't take it here because it was the spoils of war. That's number one. There is a sefer, I don't know that it ever fully came out. My Rabbi Zatzal was publishing it, and I saw the first, it was called, I think, what was it called? By the Biala Rav, the Parish on Chumash. The name skipped my mind for a moment. I hope I'll think of it later. And he asks this question. He gives the following answer, a metaphysical answer. When you live in the world and you interact with the things in the world, you have an effect on them. We know that there's a whole section of the Torah dealing with things that you made holy. You gave them holiness, either by a declaration or by preparing them in a certain way. So let's say you want something to be used as a sacrifice, just a verbal declaration. This animal should be a shlomin. Or this wine, this flour should go for the nesachim in the temple. Or the wine for the nisachim hayayin. That makes them holy. It creates a tremendous complex of laws of what can and cannot be done with them, what happens if you sell them, what happens if you use them by mistake. They get holiness by the fact that you say so. If you write a mezuzah or a tefillin or a sefer Torah with the appropriate intentions, the item becomes holy. So we know that we have the power to make things holy. We also know that we have the power to make things desecrated, either minor desecration by making them tamei, which means defiled, which means they're disqualified for certain types of holy uses, or, in the extreme case, if a Jew takes an object and makes it an idol, If he worships it as an idol, then it becomes disqualified from any use whatsoever. It has to be destroyed. So we know our actions can both elevate and also pollute and destroy the spiritual potential of things around us. Those are explicit laws of the Torah. The Sodom carried this idea out to cases where it's not under the aegis of a specific law, legal rule, but when you interact with things, you give them a certain status. There's a story about a Hasidic Rabbi who was moving from one domicile to another. He packed up all his belongings on a wagon, and he was driving away. And shortly after they started, he told the wagon, his family was on the wagon with him, and he told him to stop. And he walked back to the house. So one of the children followed him. He says, "Father," he's a Rebbe, let's see what he's going back to do. And he went inside and he kissed the bookshelves. Aha, okay. Tati's kissing the bookshelves. I wonder why he's doing that. So he asks him, and he said, they held holy books. They performed a holy function. They acquired a certain element of spirituality, and I didn't say goodbye to them. Aha, so you put holy books on a shelf. That shelf doesn't remain the same shelf. It takes on the aura of holiness of the books that it doesn't get the same level, it doesn't have the same laws, but there's something there. It's not a triviality. The president of Boston Rabbi Yerushalayim made the following observation. He said, when we see a person whose character traits make it suspicious that he doesn't have Jewish lineage, because in our sources, Jewish lineage is attended with certain character traits. The phraseology that the books use is Lo amdu ragle avosav bahar Sinai. The feet of his ancestors didn't stand on Mount Sinai. So the Rebbe said, let's think about this. His feet didn't stand on Mount Sinai? Weren't we forbidden to stand on Mount Sinai? I mean, Moses went up, right? And Yeshua was halfway up, okay? But everybody else was told, make a marking around the mountain, don't anybody go up, lest you die. What do you mean? That because he has these characteristics and it makes us suspicious, we were suspicious of his lineage, that the feet of his ancestors didn't stand on Mount Sinai. It's a good question. Ask people. So he said, well, I'll answer you by analyzing a very famous verse. It says that you shouldn't go up on Mount Sinai. Shoch hayovel hem yalu bahar. Because Baruch Hu says, when you'll hear the shofar blast, then they will go up on the mountain. Okay, so it was bound. It was forbidden to them in anticipation of the revelation at Sinai. Certainly during the revelation, they couldn't go up. But there'll come a time when the special character of the mountain will lapse, and that will be signified by a shofar blast, and then they can go up on the mountain. All right? Everybody understands this. The Rabbi pointed out, the words in the verse are when the shofar blast occurs, they will go up on the mountain. It doesn't say they can go up. They're permitted to go up. The prohibition has lapsed. It says they will go up on the mountain. What does that mean? He said it means that a place that had that impact of sanctity, interacting with it, is a place to go up to. Yes. Even after the sanctity is lost, it's a place to go up to. They will go up. They'll stand on it. So you see that where you are has an impact on the nature of the place that you're in, even when there aren't any specific laws that apply to it, because after the shofar blast, there's no law restricting what they do. But it's still a special place. Yeah.
So does that mean, let's say Nachlaot has over 200 shuls. I think it's the most shuls in any neighborhood. Does that mean that Nachlaot is more holy than other neighborhoods?
Gee, I had no idea. Nachlaot has 200 shuls.
I think it's 220, around there. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Let me ask, are they all very small? Yeah, they're all very small. No, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. I don't know how to measure relative holiness. Maybe the holiness depends upon the greatness of the scholars who live there, or the outstanding deeds of the tzaddikim who live there, and so on and so on. But it's definitely a good idea to have a lot of shuls. There's no question about it. And the places where a shul has a special holiness. The Gemara says that one of the great sages of Israel went down to Babylon, and he saw an old man, and he said, "I don't get it. How did you get to be old in Babylon?" The blessing that we have, the last sentence in the second paragraph of Shema, is that I will lengthen your days on the land. Not in Babylon. That's not the land of Israel. So he answered, I get to the shul, or base medrash, whatever it was, shul yeshiva, early in the morning, and there till late at night. Aha, good. How does that answer the question? Still in Babylon. So the Parsha says that he brings a medrash, famous medrash, that when the Mashiach comes, and the people have already, you got it already, right? The Jews will come back to Eretz Israel. The shuls and yeshivas will come also. They'll all come to Eretz Israel. So I'm putting it in modern terminology, but this is Marsha's idea. So it's as if the land of a shul is extraterritorial. You know, we live in Israel, so if you go into the American embassy here and you want to send a letter, use an American stamp. If you commit a crime in the American embassy, you're tried by American law. The grounds of the American embassy in Israel is America. It's not Israel. The home country gives over its sovereignty to those pieces of land. So, in a certain sense, the shul in Babylon has Israeli sovereignty. And that's why he could say, you're right, the verse says you get the promise to get old on the land that I give you. The shul is that land also. Not 100%. If you grow food there, you don't have to take truma somayach. Okay. You know, there are limits to the idea, but there is something there. It's not nothing. So these are all examples of how, when you live in a place, what you do there has an effect on the surroundings that you interact with. Okay, now let's imagine people whose actions are bad, they're degraded, and they interact with the surroundings so that they pollute the surroundings. They pollute the surroundings. How bad is the pollution? It can get to the point where it's no longer recoverable. It's no longer rehabilitatable. It just has to be destroyed. I mentioned an idol before. The general law, of course there are exceptions, but the general law is if a non-Jew makes an idol, he can renounce it and prohibitions are released and you can use it. But if a Jew makes an idol, that's the end. It has to be burned. It has to be destroyed. So the non-Jew's idol is polluted also, but it can be rehabilitated. The Jewish idol can't be rehabilitated. Said to be on the Rav, this is the difference between Egypt and Sodom. Egypt was no spiritual paradise. Egypt had all sorts of weaknesses and problems. But it hadn't gotten to the point where it had passed the line of no return, where you couldn't possibly rehabilitate. That's why Avraham accepted it because he could still elevate it and use it in a way that had holiness to it. In Sodom, that wasn't true. They had crossed the line, nothing there could be recovered. That's what he says, and I think he's obviously relying on the fact that the verses say it explicitly. They say, when Sodom was destroyed, it isn't just that the people died and better people came in and inherited and used the beautiful land. No, the whole physical environment was destroyed. Why was that? We have verses of Mishlei that the wicked person accumulates a great deal of wealth, and then he dies, and the righteous person inherits it. That's good. Why did it happen in Sodom? Because it passed that line of rehabilitation where it no longer could be elevated, no longer could be used. So it had to be destroyed. Therefore, in the destruction of Sodom, the whole physical environment was destroyed.
And his family managed, most of his family managed to escape. They didn't bring belongings, so that was already, because it was theirs? Well,
because it was theirs. But I don't know how much they took with them. They went to a cave, and the cave was already pre-stocked with things. So I don't know how much they actually took with them. But yes, of course, it would depend upon the behavior of the individual person. So that's the second answer as to why he took from Pharoah and he didn't take from Sodom. Then there's a third answer, which I think I'm just it's Rav Dessler's answer, which is, I'm really blown away by it. Let's go back to page 65, and let's read it again. It's a very short passage. Pay careful attention to the vocabulary, and see if you can't find some difficulty. Something in the words which, in straightforward, simple-minded logic, doesn't apply. Let's see, I want to start here. You can start just on the previous page a little bit, 63. This is after the 4 kings defeat the 5 kings. Verse 13 at the bottom of the page. Then there came the fugitive, and he told Avraham the Ivri, dwelled in the plains of Mamre, Amorite. He told him about the war. 14. And when Avraham heard that his kinsman, meaning Lot, was taken captive, he armed his disciples, who had been born in his house, 318, and he pursued them as far as Dan. And he, with the servants, deployed against them at night, and struck them, and he pursued them as far as Chova, which is to the north of Damascus. He brought back all the possessions. He also brought back his kinsman Lot with his possessions, as well as the women and the people. So, the king of Sodom went out to meet him. And now back to what we saw now, 21. The king of Sodom said to Avraham, "Give me the people and take possessions for yourself." Avraham said to the king of Sodom, "I lift up my hand to Hashem, God the Most High, maker of heaven and earth, if so much as a thread, a shoe strap, or I shall take anything from yours. So you shall not say, it is I who made Avraham rich. Far from me! Only that which the men have eaten. The share of the men who accompanied me after Eshcol and Mamre, those were his 3 Canaanite allies, who came also to participate in the war, they will take their portion." Now there's something wrong here. There's something desperately wrong here. Why is the king of Sodom asking Avraham for the people? Why is he asking him? Because Avraham won the war. If he won the war, winner takes all. The 4 kings beat the 5 kings. Avraham beat the 4 kings. He's now the owner of everything. The king of Sodom says, I have to be a king. Give me people. As far as the possessions are concerned, now listen carefully. As far as the possessions are concerned, you can take them for yourself. Isn't that the wrong thing to say? Take them for yourself? Avraham already has them. Hello, Avraham won the war. Why are you, the king of Sodom, pleading with him to give you the people? Because you don't have them, right? Avraham has them. Well, then he already has the possessions. What do you mean, take them for yourself? That's crazy. So Avraham says, aha, I see how you look at this. You look at this as if it's all yours. It's all yours. I have the guns and you don't have the guns. That's an accident of history. That's something which can pass away. It's really all yours. So that when we split it, I give you the people. And what really happens is I will retain the possessions, which I already have. You won't see it that way. No, you're going to see it that I took it from you. Because in your mind, it's all yours. And if you see it as yours, and you see me as taking it from you, then you're going to say that you made me rich. That's how you get in, that he's going to say he made him rich. Because he regards it as that Avraham is taking from him. That I don't want. And that's why I'm not going to take it from you. I think that is a beautiful diuk in the words. That he shouldn't have said take, he should have said retain. Now, if Dester finishes his analysis, why is Avraham concerned that the king of Sodom will say he made him rich? Okay, that's the kind of lowlife that he is. He regards the possessions as his, even though Avraham is formerly the owner of the possessions. He's a lowlife, and he'll say that. But here comes the real punchline. The real punchline is that Avraham Avinu takes responsibility for everybody. He cares about everybody. He can't bring himself to participate in an expression of this corruption in the king of Sodom. After all, later on, in the next Parsha, it's Avraham who pleads with the Kodesh Baruch Hu to have mercy on the people of Sodom, including the king and including all the corrupt people of Sodom. So here he says, I'm not going to participate in his downfall, participate in exacerbating his evil. I'm not going to do that. Therefore, I don't want to take money from Sodom. So this is a third explanation. And the three explanations are really quite different from one another. Now, don't make the common mistake of saying, well, which one is right? They don't clearly contradict one another. They could all three be true. All three reasons could be correct. And there could be more reasons that we haven't found. I haven't found. So these are all three aspects of the events, and all three of them have something to teach us about the way in which we conduct our lives. There are times when there are conflicts, there are times when there are battles, and some battles are justified. And sometimes it's justified to take the spoils of war. The Jewish people did that when they conquered various places, and sometimes we're told that it's definitely permissible. But we have, throughout the halachic literature, a category of that which is permissible to the citizen, but forbidden to put on the altar. And that means that it's permissible to use it, but it's restricted that it can't be put to holy uses. And that means there's nothing wrong with taking it, but ask yourself, what are you going to do with it? What's its purpose for you? Now, when we come to Sodom, Abraham's already rich, so he doesn't need support. So what he's going to do with this extra wealth is something which is not just necessary for his sustenance. So he'll do something like build an altar or something, that could have been a reason not to accept it. 1 second, I just wanted to say something. Ran through my mind. So he's not going to take. This is Rashi's explanation. He's not going to take. I would given the Maharal. They're going to take something that comes from war. Yeah, right. When he came down to Egypt, the oral tradition tells us that he was so poor that the lodging that he took on the way down to Egypt he couldn't pay for, and therefore he had to take it on credit. Why he was so poor at that time, I don't know, because he had made a large following in Haran, but he was desperately poor. So when he took the money from Egypt, that money he needed just to survive. He got a lot, but it's how he built his sustenance, and how he paid back the debts that he had. They had to pay on the way back up. So that money comes in as a necessity. It doesn't have to have any higher purpose. But according to the Rashi and the Maharal, the money that he would get from Sodom would be over and above that. So I guess you could expect that it would have been dedicated to a higher purpose, and he saw for sure that the money from war will not be able to be dedicated to a higher purpose. So that would be the background for that explanation. And then the idea that where you live and what you do has an effect on your surroundings. And if you do mitzvos with things, they become precious in a certain way. And if God forbid one does transgressions with things, they become polluted in a certain way. So one has to have that in mind as kind of the extended impact of the way one lives one's life. And the Mesilas Yesharim starts in the first chapter. He says, everyone is responsible to find out what is his obligation in the world. Ma chovaso ba'olamo, in his world. And he quotes the famous Chazal, I gave you a beautiful world. Tein datcha lo la'achriv olami. Set your mind not to destroy my world. So the picture you have is you're living in Kodesh Baruch Hu's world. And what you do has an effect on his world. And it can elevate it and perfect it, or it can pollute it and lead to destruction. When the Mabul took place, so a gigantic amount of the important creatures on the earth died. That's not nothing. It's the world that Kodesh Baruch Hu wanted to be completed, elevated, sanctified, and it wasn't. It got to the point where it had to be destroyed. Set your mind not to destroy my world. So that could be through overt physical destructive action, or it could be through acting in a way that sends out these spiritual vibes of destruction and can pollute the world. So that's and Avraham saw that in Sedom that had gone beyond that. So in other words, if you say that you take that idea that had gone beyond the possibility of using, then it just means that what Rashi and the Maharal are saying is hypothetical. Even if it weren't so destroyed, even if it were able to be rehabilitated, I wouldn't have taken it because it's a product of war. It doesn't have to be that there's a contradiction there. And then the third aspect that Rav Dessler is talking about is thinking interpersonally. What does it mean to interact with the wealth of another person? What implications does that have? People are all now debating. America sent 2 destroyers and warships, into this area, ostensibly to give us more umbrella coverage, but they're now dictating how the war shall go. And they're not doing it gently either. They're saying, listen, we want you to do this, we want you to do that, we want you to delay. So you know that when you take for somebody, there's an indebtedness built up, is a connection built up. And here, in Avram's case, it was very ethereal. I don't want to be an instigator to reinforce the corruption of your picture of the world around you and how you related to it and how you related to the people in it. I can't play a role of reinforcing that corruption. So all of these are indicated by the now. I'm trying to remember whether I should look at this. I think I have a list here. I'm trying to remember whether this is one of the 10. One of the 10 tests that Avraham had, according to 2 lists. We have 2 lists. Here they are. One second. Just one second. Let me just check this. No. So this was not one of his tests to not take the money from the thing. Not one of the 10 tests. Doesn't mean he wasn't tested. Doesn't mean that it wasn't important. But it wasn't these 10 super significant tests. But you see the subtlety with which Avraham approached this particular decision to make. It would be worthwhile, as you're going through, especially Bereshis, when you're reading the stories in Bereshis, to pay attention to what we would call the frumkeit, the religious piety of these people. We often think about their great moral characteristics, and their emunah, but just piety. In other words, what is the Kodesh Baruch Hu doing? What does the Kodesh Baruch Hu want from me? How can I serve a Kodesh Baruch Hu better? I think we can get guidance and inspiration from that. When the brothers go down to Egypt and Joseph, unbeknownst to them, is bitter with them and vicious and aggressive with them, and they say, Aval Hashim, we are guilty, what we did for our brother, and we're being attacked because of that. They immediately attributed not to the viciousness of this supposed Egyptian, and not because they're Jews. No, we did a crime, and we're paying for it. And when they find the money in their sacks coming back, they say, what is this that God has done for us? We know he did it, but how did it happen? What's it supposed to mean? How are we supposed to relate to it? Which means as they lived their lives, they saw it in terms of divine providence. Okay, so that's how a Jew does things. He does it seeing it as a matter of divine providence. And then ask himself, what does the Kodesh Baruch Hu want from me? And here, with this case of Avraham, we understand they're looking at it from the point of view of divine will. We're talking about the impact of good actions versus bad actions on the spirituality, the surroundings, the things that we identify with, what we call frumkeit. Yes, that was the meat and potatoes of their lives, because that's the kind of people that they were. Yeah, you had a question.
Rob answered it, but I just want to ask, there's also a difference in the two times Avraham took money. There was a famine when he took from Pharoh. So if there was no famine, I don't know if he would have taken or not. But it certainly was a time of distress. So,
okay, so that's a good point. There was a famine at that time. Now, I don't think he could have avoided taking it because the motivation of Pharaoh to give him money, as I understand it, was not because it was a famine, because he was a pauper on the street, but because he's going to be a brother-in-law of the king, and it's not appropriate to be a brother-in-law of the king if you're a pauper. It's just not right. It's not the right. That's the royal family. So I think that, and even more, if you read the previous verses, Avraham says to Sarah, "Please say that you're my sister, I'm your brother, so that it will go well with me, and I will live on account of you." So the commentary says, now let's see, wait a second here. You want two results, right, of her saying that you're brother and sister. Two results, A and B. Let's see, and then you put them in this order. First of all, things will go well for me. I'll make some money, I'll be in good health, something else. Okay, that's one thing that I want. Now let's see, there was a second thing. Give me a minute, I'll say, oh yes, I also want to survive. Right, don't forget that, yeah, surviving is also important. Isn't the order peculiar in that verse? Why would you put things going well before surviving? And the one answer is, the one is the means to the other. If we're brother and sister, and he wants you, he will want me to agree. Yes, if we're husband and wife, he'll kill me to get you, because that's the only way he can get you. But he's not a savage person. He's not a barbaric person. If we're brother and sister, he will want consent. And he'll do good things for me to get me to consent that he should marry you. And that's how things will go well for me. So what he says is, you say we're brother and sister, and then things will go well for me, and through their going well for me, I will survive. Then the order is explained. So it would be impossible for him to simply say, no thanks, king, I'm doing fine, or I don't need, or I've taken a vow of poverty. No, that's not going to happen. Did you have a question? Did you see your hand up? No. Okay. So that explains. Those are the three explanations that I know as to why he took what he took from Paro, and why he did not take from the king of Sodom. Having said it, let me I have a few minutes, because some people are confused about this. When HaKadosh Baruch Hu told Avraham he's going to destroy Sodom, what did he ask for? If you look on page 83, there's a 3-verse speech that Avraham gives to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and you have to read it very carefully, because it's quite subtle. This is chapter 18, verse 23. Avraham came forward and said, "Will you also stamp out the righteous along with the wicked? What if there should be 50 righteous people in the midst of the city? Would you still stamp it out rather than spare the place for the sake of the 50 righteous people within it? It would be sacrilege to you to do such a thing, to bring death upon the righteous along with the wicked, so the righteous will be like the wicked. It would be sacrilege to you Shall the judge of all the earth not do justice? This is a very complex speech. This speech is arranged like a sandwich, or ABA. The first and third verses say the same thing, and the middle verse says something entirely different. The first verse says, will you also stamp out the righteous along with the wicked? Meaning, the wicked are wicked, and they deserve destruction, and they're going to be destroyed, but are you going to kill the righteous also? Skip to the third sentence. 25. It would be sacrilege to you to do such a thing, to bring death upon the righteous along with the wicked, so the righteous will be like the wicked. It would be sacrilege to you. Shall judge the earth not do justice? Meaning, in all of this, the wicked are lost. You're going to destroy them? That's fine with me. They deserve it. No problem. But you can't kill the righteous also. That's what 23 and 25 say. Now look at 24. What if there should be 50 righteous people in the midst of the city? Would you still stamp it out? What's the it?
Sedom.
The city. The whole city. Rather than spare the place. What's the place? The city of Sodom. Spare the whole city for the sake of the 50 righteous. This is a brand new idea. This is a plea, don't destroy the wicked. You don't have that in 23 and 25. There you have, the wicked are gone. They're going to be destroyed. Forget about them. Just don't kill the righteous. You can't do that. It's against justice to kill the righteous. 24 says don't kill the wicked if there are 50 righteous there. 23 and 25 is a demand for justice. It's put in very strong terms. Shall the judge of the earth not do justice? That's an impossibility. 24 isn't put that way. 24 is a plea for mercy. If there are 50 righteous people, won't you also be merciful to the wicked and not destroy them for the sake of the 50 righteous people in it? It's an entirely different idea. So really, Avraham is pleading not just that the righteous be saved, demanding it in the name of justice, he's pleading that nobody be hurt, if there are 50. And then, as you all know, he bargains them down to 10. If there'll be 10, save the whole city on that basis. So you see how Avraham is committed to saving even the wicked people of Sodom. So then it's not surprising what Rav Desta says, that he didn't want to be a hand in expressing the corruption of the king of Sodom by giving him an opportunity to say that he made Avraham rich. He didn't want to be party to that. That is extremely important. Now I'll just finish with one more observation. So now, what does Avraham say? Has two petitions. One petition is for justice, don't kill the righteous, and the other petition is for mercy for the wicked, if there are 50 righteous people there. What does the Kodesh Baruch Hu answer? If there are 50 righteous people there, I will spare the whole place. So now, if I say to somebody, please give me A and please give me B, and he says, I'll give you B, ordinarily I would assume he meant, you asked for two things, but I'm not giving you two things. I'm giving you one. Too bad. I'm just not giving you both. I don't think that's the right understanding here, because the plea for justice and the plea for mercy aren't on a par. The plea for justice is much more basic. It's put in much stronger terms. It's stated as if it's an impossibility. Shall the judge of the earth, all the earth, not do justice? The plea for mercy comes in as an even. And even if you grant me what I feel justified in demanding, that you do justice, I'm asking also, in addition to that, for mercy for the wicked. So when the Kodesh Baruch Hu says, I'm willing to give you mercy for the wicked, his answer by implication is, of course, I'm not going to violate the laws of justice. But not only am I going to fulfill the laws of justice and not kill the righteous, but also I'm going to have mercy on the wicked if there are 50 there. So even though only one answer is expressed in the text, by logical implication, because Baruch Hu is answering both questions positively. Okay? All right, a little textual study.